Thanks very much. Morning, everyone. Morning. Guys, I've got two main goals from my session. Number one, I'd like to give you some IIP. I'd like to give you some insights, some inspiration, and also some practical tools that we can use to help not just young people, but also ourselves. So that's goal number one, give you some IIP. My other goal is this. I'm with you now for the next 45 minutes, and I hope we can have a bit of a laugh and enjoy ourselves as well. So, are you up for a bit of laughter and learning? You all said? Yeah. Great, let's try and achieve that straight away. Everyone just stand up in a relatively enthusiastic way, please. And for this exercise, you'll need a partner. So if you want to turn and face the person next to you or behind you, that'd be good. If you are, calm down, can I go a bit higher? If you are struggling to find a partner, you can make a threesome. And for some of you, this conference just got a little bit more exciting. All right, just before we go on with the exercise, show of hands. Has anyone ever been to New Zealand? Anyone ever been to New Zealand? A few of you have. Whether you have or you haven't, you're probably aware that in the Maori tradition, when they meet each other on a Tuesday morning, they rub noses. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Who wants to swap partner? Do you know what? There are some guys in the room going, no, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. There are some women who are looking at me right now going, McGee, if you go through with this, I am out of here. I don't care if Ruby Wax is on later. I'm leaving now. And there are some men who, and I always find it funny when men look at men. I mean, most of them feel comfortable, but you do get the odd individual who does look a bit uncomfortable at this stage. They are so out of their comfort zone. And you can tell by the body language, they've either got their arms folded, hands in their pockets. The one I find fascinating is those that stood there covering their groin. And if they're really butch, probably originally from the north of England, they've got their hands on the hips going, you just try it, pal. Well, I know you're going to be gutted, but we're not going to rub noses. But I think part of resilience, a word that I think is hugely important in life that we don't actually maybe do enough of, is fun. And life is serious, but sometimes we take ourselves a bit too seriously. So for this exercise, please don't take yourself too seriously. What I'd like you to do is just look each other in the eye, or in both eyes if you prefer. If you're a threesome, that's your first big challenge of the day. And just repeat the following to each other. Ja elskar Super klumpermin. Ja elskar super klumpermin. That was fantastic. Have a seat. Well done. Okay, just in case you are wondering, what have I just said to my partner? You've just said in Norwegian, I love you, sugar baby. I just hope that bonds you together a little bit more. Man, I'm feeling even more resilient. Show of hands, how many of you have flown in the last couple of years? I mean on an aeroplane, not just randomly where you live. In the safety announcements, it will always say the following, won't it? If there's a drop in cabin pressure, the oxygen masks will come down. But then it says something really interesting. Put your own on first before helping others. You see, the theme of my session is this. Resilience in the classroom starts in the staff room. Maybe it also starts in our home life as well. Because the reality is you are here today because your role in life means I spend a lot of time putting on the oxygen masks of other people. And that I realise there's a lot of young people who need a lot of help, but also their families and also their communities. But it's really difficult to pour from an empty cup. And the word inspire means to breathe life into. And I guess maybe you've never articulated it like that before, but the purpose of what you do and why you do what you do is because you want to breathe some life, some hope, some inspiration into people's lives. And that is massively, massively important. But, for me, well-being isn't simply a children approach. It's a whole holistic approach. It's I need to actually put my own oxygen mask on, because I don't know about you, but sometimes people, politics, bureaucracy, change, uncertainty can sometimes suck a little bit of life out of you. Can anybody relate to that? 7 of you, thanks for the feedback. Glad I came, glad I stayed overnight in a Premier Inn to be with you this morning. My background isn't really in a background that you share. My background's in beef burgers. It's definitely equipped me to be with you today. You see, I started off my life many years ago as a graduate management trainee. I worked for Unilever, big multinational organisation. My training started with one of their companies, Bird's Eye Walls. So there I was, specialising in HR. First 6 months of my life, I'm just in an office pushing pen and paper. Then I have a life-changing conversation with the factory manager. He says, Paul, do you not be really good for your development if you actually spent some time actually in the factory managing the 30 women on the economy beef burger line? I remember thinking to myself, bring it on. 2 main lessons I got from that experience. Number 1, don't eat economy beef burgers. Secondly, when arrogance meets ignorance, that is a really dangerous cocktail. Would you agree? And I was a bit of both. I thought managing 30 women should be relatively straightforward. Because after all, I've got a degree. I've got a background in psychology and have trained and worked as a probation officer. Do you know what? I sensed I was not the first graduate management trainee those 30 women had ever come across. Now imagine the scene. For food hygiene purposes, when I'm in the factory, I've got to wear a special little outfit. I wore a white coat and a blue hairnet. I looked amazing. Walk onto the shop floor day 1. 30 women are just lined up to greet me. And they've all got that look on their face. Go on then. Motivate me. Brenda, the leader of the pack, steps forward, takes a look at me and goes, girls, we're going to have some fun here. And they did. And folks, there's a reason why I want to tell you that as part of my background. I do think training and qualifications are hugely important. And they're really important for children to help young people get the best start in life. But just generally, I want you to also think about this. You know, we've got 3-dimensional problems and we sometimes take a 1-dimensional approach to it. And we think if you've got the right exams, you're set up for life. If you've got the right qualifications, you're set up for life. That has not been my experience. Qualifications will only take you so far. Ultimately, nothing beats a bit of wisdom, some hard work, some self-belief, and crucially, the support of other people as well. Would you agree with that? You see, I've spoken in 41 countries across all sectors. Let me tell you, I have met some highly intelligent, well-qualified managers who haven't got a clue how to manage people. Research in the US recently, what would you rather have, a pay rise or a new boss? 62% said, give me a new boss. Some of you are nodding very enthusiastically then. Preach it, Paul! You know what? I've met some highly intelligent, well-qualified people who are total stress heads. And I have met some highly intelligent, well-qualified people who haven't got a clue really how to communicate and engage well with others. Have any of you ever been to karaoke or done a karaoke event, been to a karaoke bar? Okay, a few of you. Then you probably relate to this. Knowing the words to a song does not make you a great singer. And I think someone as being an expert in our topic doesn't automatically mean we're going to be a great communicator. So although my background's in beef burgers, let me tell you this, those 30 women taught me something about myself that a 4-year degree never actually could do. Context of today, wherever I go, is we're dealing with change. £1 coin in your pocket, June the 1st, 2015. You had £1 in your pocket, say. And you did something you've never ever done before. As you're walking down the road, you see a betting shop and you go, I've got this idea. It's June the 1st, 2015. I'm going to predict the following 3 things happen in the next couple of years. Number 1, Leicester City are going to win the Premier League. Number two, although he's not even entered the presidential race at the moment, I'm convinced the next president of the United States of America will be Donald Trump. And number three, we're going to vote to leave the EU. If you'd have done that, placed that £1 accumulative bet on June the 1st, 2015, I bet you wouldn't be here now. You'd be wondering, what do I do with my £4.5 million winnings? Because that's what you would have had. Why have I told you that? We're not just living in a changing world. We're not just living in an uncertain world. We're living in a very unpredictable world. And we need to help our young people and also ourselves. How do I survive and thrive in these kind of times? If I was to describe my life, if I'm coming at it from a personal perspective now, if I used a metaphor, I would say this: it's actually been a bit of a roller coaster. You know, I've had some highs. One of my highs is actually the privilege of working with HeadStart and partnering with them. But I've still had a few lows, and I've had a few lows even when I've been working with HeadStart in my personal life. If I rewind back a few years ago, I had a major low. I lost my job. And I didn't lose it through redundancy or reorganisation or a restructure. I lost it through ill health. I became ill with an illness called ME, myalgic encephalomyelitis, yuppie flu, or chronic fatigue syndrome. Most of you heard of it? In the late 80s, when I was diagnosed with it, 8 out of 10 doctors didn't even believe it was a genuine illness. So there's a stigmatism around mental health, and I get that, and people are going, well, pull yourself together, you'll be fine. I had the experience not of actually having what I thought was a physical illness, but people going, it's all in your head. So although I'd lost my job, although my wife had to care for me and sometimes had to wash me because physically I wasn't able to do that, the reality was I didn't get sympathy, I got suspicion. And talk about a dramatic change in my life. One day I'd been this so-called high-flying graduate management trainee with kind of like all the kudos that goes with that. 7 days later, I'm on invalidity benefit, as they called it then. Now they call it incapacity. I got £35 a week to live on. I had a mortgage based on a salary I'd no longer got, and I got no mortgage protection. Do you know, here's something? I didn't just lose my house. Sorry, I didn't just lose my job. I felt like I'd lost my identity, and it looks like I will lose my house. And I'll tell you one of the things that is always going to help us in our times of change: other people supporting you. I had some brilliant friends and an amazing wife who didn't just physically care for me. She went out and worked full time, and do you know what? It still wasn't enough really to pay all our bills. So what do? We've got a bit of a problem here. What do? We've got a spare bedroom. It's a box room. So we decided to rent it out. We got 30 quid a week. I felt like we were millionaires. My doctors, one of the 8 out of 10 doctors, didn't even believe it was a genuine illness. Here's how he supported me. He sent me to see a psychiatrist in Liverpool, and if I'm honest with you, I found that a rather humiliating experience. Not going to Liverpool, but seeing the psychiatrist. Calm down. And the gods conspired in those days. You didn't get your money paid into your bank account. You had to go to the local post office to get it. And I remember the day I had to go and get my £35 was on the same day old age pensioners collected their pension. It was a surreal experience. There I am. I've got a walking stick, and there was one word that I think we can give young people, but without it, it's a massive problem. And it was a word that was lacking on my horizon at the time, and that was this: hope. Will I get over this? Because the only person I knew with the illness was in a wheelchair. I had a walking stick at the time. I remember being in this post office queue and waiting to collect my money. I'm starting looking around, I'm thinking, shoot, I never thought life was going to turn out quite like this. Why do I tell you that, by the way, as part of my background? Because I sometimes get called a motivational speaker, and I need to manage your expectations today. You're not going to get what I call Californian motivation. I'm not going to suggest that tomorrow morning you look at yourself in a mirror going, I'm a tiger, I'm a tiger, I'm a tiger. You can do that in the afternoon, like Kevin Pace. See, I'm from Manchester, and I need you to know the whole of my work that I've been developing over the last 20-odd years is based on what I'd call some Mancunian principles, which are these: tell it as it is, no bull, and let's be really practical. The nature of my illness, I'd improve. I think I'm getting over this. My wife's not having to wash me as much and care for me. Then I'd relapse. Then I'd improve again. And then I'd relapse. I never knew if I was going to get over it. And I think one of the challenges that we sometimes face in life, yes, it's change, but it's definitely uncertainty that goes with it. And for 3 years of being ill, I thought I'm well enough to start rebuilding my life. But I'm going to start small. I'd had this high-flying job, but maybe I'll just dip my toe in the water of work and just get myself a little job. Here was my aspirations a few years ago. Get a little job maybe in a supermarket, stacking some shelves, because maybe if I earned a few quid, then I'd have a chance to maybe just take my wife out occasionally for a meal and say, thanks for all you've done for the last 3 years. I couldn't even get a job stacking shelves. Why? Because I couldn't pass a medical. I couldn't say to anybody, honestly, I'm not going to relapse from this illness. So here's what I did 26 years ago. I hired myself. I was flipping awesome at the interview. I was a standout candidate. Since then, I've written a few books, spoken in a few countries. I work with the 3 Ps. I work in the public sector, I work in the private sector, and I work with the Premier League football team. Don't support them, but I've been working with Manchester City since 2010. And let me tell you, some of the stuff that goes on inside players' heads impacts their performance on the pitch. And I would not say that mental health issues are related to your income. They're just related to you being alive on this planet, whatever your background sometimes is and whatever your wage packet looks like. 2002, I started to use this phrase, sumo. A lot of you have come across it. HeadStart came across it a few years ago and have been partnering with me in the work that they've been doing. If you've not come across it, it's an acronym, and it typically stands for this: shut up, move on. Some people love that phrase. Some people go, that sounds a bit aggressive, and it seems a bit insensitive as well in the context of what we're talking about. Can I just say this, guys? I've been on this planet 53 years. And one of the things I've learned, sometimes I need to shut up my moaning about stuff that ain't going to change and move on and focus my attention on what I can do something about. And there's lots of things that the big lottery know that they can't change, but they've initiated this with their partnership with HeadStart to go, but let's move on and focus our energies on what we can do something about and how we can make a difference in young people's lives. So sometimes I just need to shut up my moaning about stuff that ain't going to change. Because I think sometimes my own moaning sucks the life out of me. I don't need anyone else to do it. I can do it to myself. Sometimes maybe shut up our excuses. You know what? One shot at this life. Well, I want to move on and grasp it for all it's worth and hopefully encourage and enable and equip other people to try and do the same. And maybe also shut up that voice of self-doubt that's always telling us why we can't do stuff. Why we can't put on a conference that's going to have 500 people here. And just move on with a little bit more self-belief. But if you've spent any time with Sumo and my approach and some of my team, and I'm delighted I've got Ed and Sarah, part of my team here today with me, Sumo isn't just a catchphrase, it's a philosophy for life. And to clarify, what do I really mean by the word shut up? Let me ask you 2 questions. Show of hands, how many of you drive a car? All right, then this next question is a weird question. So weird question warning coming up. In a moment, words will tumble out of my mouth and you will go, that is a weird question. It is, but I want to make a point. How many of you, by show of hands, got yourselves dressed this morning? You personally put your own clothes on. Keep your hands up, have a quick look around you, because anybody without their hands up is clearly leading a far more interesting life than you are. The reason I ask those 2 questions is this: psychologists reckon that as much as 80 to 85% of what we do on a day-to-day basis, 80 to 85%, we're doing it on autopilot. In other words, we do a lot of stuff in life without consciously thinking about what we're doing or why we're doing it the way we are. And there's some of the stuff that we do on autopilot works for us and some of it doesn't. So I don't know if you've ever had this experience. Not milking a cow, but if you've been driving, have you ever been on a longish journey, lost in your thoughts and your music, and almost had that rather scary experience? All of a sudden, it's like you wake up and think, what happened to the last 5 miles? Why am I in the back seat? Whose car is this? Because when you're driving an autopilot, when you get dressed in the morning, I strongly suspect a lot of you weren't thinking, what do I put on first, my left or my right shoe? You do it without thinking. Shut up, it's just trying to get your attention. Be provocative and go, guys, it's good to get off autopilot. It's good to, when we're doing life on fast forward, to have a time, not just by attending a conference like this, but just building into our general lifestyle. To just say, I'm just going to press pause for a moment. Maybe I will be a bit more mindful. Maybe I will be a bit more present. Maybe I will just think and reflect. That's the shut up bit. There's a move on bit. But the program that we've been doing with HeadStart, it's not just about reflection and thinking. It's about action and moving on. A few years ago, I had this idea. Why don't we do sumo for schools? Life skills for kids to last a lifetime. That's what we now do. And I know there's some schools represented today here in the room who do sumo. That's brilliant. But I've got to be honest with you, I had an interesting conversation a few years ago with a primary school head teacher. It kind of went a bit like this. Paul, can I just start by saying I am a fan? I am. I read your book. I love your book. My husband read your book. He doesn't normally read books. He loved your book. And the inset day you did for the staff, they absolutely loved it. And the children are really embracing sumo. What was the next word? But I still don't like what it stands for. I know sumo's not really meant to be aggressive, but the problem is, I had one of the children recently, their parents came in and said, my son George keeps on going on about sumo. What is it? She said, I felt really uncomfortable saying it's an acronym. It stands for shut up, move on. She said, George is 7. One of our values as a school is respect, and we say it's disrespectful to say to each other, shut up. So I'd like to change the title of your program. I said, Linda, it's me brand, it's the title of the book, it's what I'm kind of known for. She said, no, I get all that, but if you don't change the title of the program, I don't think we can use it anymore. I said, have you got any ideas what we could call it? She said, no. Quick conversation before I tell you the rest of the story with your Norwegian friend, right? Just discuss, have a guess, who allegedly, and I emphasize the word allegedly, who allegedly said the following: the future does not belong to the strongest or the most intelligent. The future belongs to those who are best able to adapt to change. 10 seconds, have a guess, go, 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 go. Okay, yo. So the future does not belong to the strongest or the most intelligent. The future belongs to those who are best able to adapt to change, was allegedly said by the son of a vicar from Shrewsbury, called Charles Darwin. Guys, you know what? If McDonald's can sell salads, which they have been doing since 2005, then maybe I need to realize this. Part of what maybe causes me stress is I have rigid thinking, that I'm not flexible enough, that I'm not adaptable. Maybe I'm a bit too precious and pedantic. Sumo does still stand for shut up and move on, but it can now also stand for this: stop, understand, move on. And we're still working with the school. I want to share with you, I use this phrase sometimes, what are you thankful for? But I think of for as F-O-U-R. What are you thankful for? Think of 4 things you are thankful for. Well, I want to share with you 4 things that I think can help us maybe get the best out of ourselves, get the best out of others, and get the best out of life. I think that these are principles and ideas that relate to young people, but also to adults as well. Let me share with you the first one that I want to just talk about. Be kind to yourself. In my book, I talk about, we get into what I would call faulty thinking at times. And faulty thinking is, well, it's the consequences of it can increase your stress and your anxiety, but it can decrease your confidence and your motivation. And we can do that to ourselves. And you can be saying, I don't have any mental health issues and I'm thriving and I'm flourishing. But you see, we're all prone to faulty thinking. It increases your stress and your anxiety, and it can decrease your confidence and your motivation. And one of the types of faulty thinking that I talk about often in my work, I simply call it this, the inner critic. And the inner critic is the voice inside your head and my head and young people's heads that can highlight your weaknesses and it can undermine your confidence. And the best way to visually describe your inner critic because you know what? Sometimes we will make a mistake. And sometimes we'll get things wrong. But it's like we get conditioned, don't we? Be perfect. We live in a society that on one level says, buy this product because you're worth it. And yet we also have messages from the media that you're not quite good enough, actually. And you'll need this product or this experience to be good enough. And I think we can spend a lot of our time, and I've spent a lot of my life, 53 years on this planet, and the majority of that is I've been trying to prove myself to myself and prove myself to other people, rather than come from a point of view of, all right, maybe you need to improve and develop, Paul, and grow, and that's wonderful, but maybe deep down at the heart of who you are, you're okay. And be kind to yourself. I mean, the thing is, though, and Kevin used this word fail earlier on, and none of us like to fail, but actually, and you're probably familiar with this definition, but I found it really helpful, not just for young people, but for me, in my business, in my life, to think of the word fail as first attempt in learning. But at times I feel like I should do something for the first time, and if I don't knock it out of the park, then clearly I'm not very good at that. Whereas we're all on a learning journey, and for me, every single one of you, whatever your job title is in this room, like me, you're a student, you're a learner. And education doesn't stop when people leave school or college, it goes on for life. But sometimes it's like we've made a mistake on the Monday, we're still beating ourselves up about it on the Tuesday, the Wednesday, the Thursday, the Friday, the following week, the following month. And I realize that at times, I haven't been kind to myself. I mean, lots of other people who are not kind to themselves. And actually, rather than growing self-awareness, self-understanding and self-compassion, I think sometimes we're self-judging, which in itself might not be a physical self-harm, but could be a mental and emotional self-harming. Self-loathing. And just to be able to kind of go, you know what, Paul, like yourself, not because of what you've achieved, but just like yourself for who you are. I do presentation training. A guy was on one of my sessions recently. He said, Paul, not only do I relate to red boxing glove, it's like mine's got a megaphone attached to it. And I'm convinced that the single biggest cause of stress in anybody's life is not just what's going on out there, but is what's going on up here. And that can be fed through society, through the media. My wife used to work as a biomedical scientist. I remember she came home one day and she said, we've just done some blood tests on a 7-year-old, query anorexia. And I think that was years ago, and now you think about social media and I want to post nice pictures. I don't look at myself and think, which picture do I look the fattest and ugliest in? I'll have that as my profile photo. Of course we want to look good, but I think sometimes people judge their unedited lives and compare themselves against people's edited, photoshopped, filtered lives. And we sometimes don't think we're good enough, and we think we've got to keep on achieving more and doing more. And we want to achieve, and we want to grow, and we want to do more, but maybe also just come from a point of view of, I'll start by saying I'm okay. I'll start by actually being kind to myself. I'll start by realizing I've probably got some signature strengths that I need to build on, and there are some areas of my life, it's not really my great strength, and I accept that, and I'm kind to myself, and I'm compassionate rather than self-loathing, that I'm self-understanding rather than self-judging. And I think this can also get fed just by sometimes the conversations we may have had in the past with other people. A teacher who can speak words of life into you but can sometimes mean that you feel that you are small. A mate may say something, a family member may say something. November the 22nd, 2003, England won the Rugby World Cup. Johnny Wilkinson, last minute drop goal. Anyone got a vague idea what I'm on about? And if you're not into sport, that's fine, because just go with the story. Because you know, sometimes in life, what does being kind to yourself mean? It means back yourself. Believe in yourself. The coach in the rugby team that day was a guy called Sir Clive Woodward. He became ultimately the elite performance director for the British Olympic Association. He wrote a book called Winning. I remember reading the book about how he changed the attitude and the mindset of the players to not just kind of like accept that occasionally they might win the 5 or 6 nations, but they could actually win the Rugby World Cup. And he inspired them and he breathed life into them. And as I was reading the book, I started having a conversation inside my head. I thought, why don't I write to Sir Clive Woodward? Why don't I tell him what a great book it is? Why don't I kind of say I'm going to promote it wherever I go? And then I had this thought, why don't I send him a copy of my sumo book? Hey, even if he never read it, wouldn't it be great if he used the phrase when he's been interviewed by the media? So that's what I was thinking of doing. And I shared my idea with my mate Andy, and here was Andy's reaction. Paul, you're such a flipping brown noser, mate. You'll be stalking him next. Oh, Sir Clive, I like your book. Here's a copy of mine. He's unlikely to read your book, is he? He's one of the top sports coaches in the world. Isn't it great when you've got people in your life who believe in you? And do you know what my thoughts were? Yeah, you're probably right. So what did I do? I didn't send Sir Clive Woodward a copy of my book for 48 hours. And then I asked myself a question, and maybe we sometimes need to be kinder in our conversations with ourselves. Because I just asked this one question of myself. What have I got to lose? I'm thinking of sending a book to a bloke. I'm not thinking of leaving my family and emigrating to Australia. And maybe just in life, sometimes we do, not because I want to achieve anything that proves to the world who Paul McGee is, but it's an idea. Let's believe in yourself, back yourself. I sent Sir Clive Woodward a copy of my book. 24 hours later, I got an email. Paul, thanks for your book. I've not read it yet, but I just thought I'd let you know. I've already used the phrase sumo, shut up and move on with some of the players today. I'm thinking, results. 2 weeks later, I got another email. Paul, I read your book. I got loads from it. Would it be possible to meet you? I think you can help me. You know, my first thoughts were, is this a spoof email that flipping Andy has sent me? And it wasn't. And I went on to work with Sir Clive Woodward. How easy it is to sometimes get discouraged and derailed by the comments that other people make. And you know what? My value and my worth as a human being didn't change because I worked with someone you may have heard with. So it's not by doing that I suddenly have greater value and worth. No, that hasn't changed. But maybe by being kinder to ourselves, it's about backing ourselves a bit more. Because we're not on this planet, I don't think, just to drift along and then one day I leave. Maybe we are here to leave our mark, whatever that looks like in life. Denzel Washington, the American actor, couldn't be here today. Couldn't find a place to park. Interviewed by the press some time ago, he said this: a key influence in my life was Charlie White. He was my youth group leader. I remember him saying this to me: Denzel, with your intelligence, you can do anything you want. Well, press pause, just listen to this next line. I was 10 years old at the time, but I never forgot what he said. You see, you never know the power of words when you speak to young people. You know, I was in my education, I started it in the late 60s through to the 70s and part of the 1980s. In terms of my school, I spent, 13 years at school? Learned about life under the Romans, the inner workings of a frog, how to operate a Bunsen burner. I mean, it's had a deeply profound impact on my life. There's not a day goes by where I don't use a Bunsen burner for something. I took tablets when I was a teenager. I ran away from home at the age of 10. And you don't run away from home at the age of 10 unless there's some stuff going on in your life. And when I took those tablets, I didn't really want to end my life. I suppose it was a cry for help. And for flipping years, I really struggled with this. And I guess what HeadStart and the interventions you're doing is saying, yeah, we're sometimes a bit fragile and frail and not always thriving in the way we can, but can we start from a position of not that you need fixing, but that you're okay? That let's try and support each other on our journey. And let's start by being kinder to ourselves. Because it's not just the power of words when you speak to young people that's important. It's the power of words when you're talking to yourself. Be kind to yourself, folks, and encourage others to do that as well. Second point I want to make, I just simply call it this. Get perspective. Daniel Kahneman wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And in the book he talks about two kind of like systems going on in the brain. And one of the systems I refer to very often now, and we're doing this with some of the young people as well, is it's your fast part of your brain, it's your primitive, it's your emotional part of your brain. It's kind of, it's the first bit of the brain that develops in the mother's womb. Its primary purpose is it wants to keep us alive. It's fast, it's automatic, it's instinctive, it reacts. It kind of sometimes puts speed over accuracy. It's like act first, think later. And when you're a teenager, this primitive emotional part of your brain really does dominate. But it can also dominate with adults. Kahneman talked about a slower system. He called it the slow brain. I talk about primitive emotional and more your rational part of your brain. And the rational part of your brain, though, the slow part, is kind of the bit you access when you want to sort of like stop, think, reflect, process. But the reality is at times in the life that we are living, in the age that we're living in, with just constant speed and unpredictability, sometimes this just rules and we just don't take time to access the more rational part of our brain. One of the things that I've become known for in my material is this, that I came up with 7 questions to help you sumo. To help you in a sense that when you realize you're in that red part of your brain, how can I get perspective, press pause, and access more this calming part of my brain? And so I put these questions onto a postcard. I'm going to be here all day. And if you go out into sort of like where the marketplace is, near where you've got the resilience rider machine, like the go-kart, I've just got a little stand there. And if you want to have one of these cards with all the 7 questions on, then they're there for you to take away. There's probably enough for every single one of you in the room to take one of these cards. They've got these 7 questions to help you in a variety of situations. There won't be enough that if the first person who comes to the stand says, I'll have 20 for friends and family, there won't be. But I just want to give you a taster of just one of these questions. Because people need help, we all need help, because this is strong, this is fast, automatic, instinctive, reactive, which is brilliant when someone cuts you up on the motorway or at a roundabout. But sometimes maybe in life we're reacting to stuff without engaging this. Here's a question, the first question on the postcard, just to share with you, and maybe it'll be helpful for you in certain situations. It's just very simply this. So where is this issue on a scale of 1 to 10? Now there's something missing from the screen and there's something missing from the postcard. But it's to add in brackets the following. So where is this issue on a scale of 1 to 10 in brackets where 10 equals death? Because I find in life sometimes that I am reacting to a situation and it's like my elastic band is so stretched and close to snapping. But part of the reason is this: I'm just doing life with my red hat on all the time. I'm reacting to things all the time. And actually things that are probably only a 1 or a 2 in the great grand scheme of things, I'm reacting like they're an 8 or a 9. In the past, I know there's been situations where, like maybe in my personal life, it's like, I don't believe this. How could that have happened? Tidy your bedroom. I knew I should never have married you. Or I'm shopping, I'm in the supermarket, I'm in a rush, I'm in the 10 items or less queue. I am that sad an individual, I have counted the items in other people's baskets. They've got 11. Call security, I'll scratch a car. I've got issues. Oh, and by the way, if I am driving and I let you into the traffic and you don't thank me, boy, is my red hat on, and can I just tell you, that's an 11. But it's probably not, is it? It's probably more a 1 or a 2, but I'm reacting like it's an 8 or a 9. Guys, I am painfully aware there are 10s, 9s, and 8s in life. And you probably are as well. But my concern for you, me, and for the young people we work with is that when logically, rationally, it's a 2, but we're reacting like it's an 8 or a 9. Here's a little phrase for you: stress makes you stupid. Drugs and alcohol will also do that. But we can make ourselves stupid by just accessing and only accessing the red part of that brain, that primitive emotional fast system. And we don't need drugs, we don't need alcohol. Our self-harming is more of a mental approach where everything's a flipping 9, and we will find our elastic band. We won't be resilient. We will ultimately snap. And don't get me wrong, you've still got to do your 1s and your 2s. Are some of you back in work tomorrow? 6 of you, that's wonderful. Not suggesting if someone at work says, we've had a right crisis, you've been at your flipping HeadStart conference. I'm not saying you start phoning around the building going, did anybody die? Well, no, why? Well, I'm off for a cappuccino. I'll catch you later. Ofsted inspector. Went to New Zealand with my family a while back. We arrived at New Christchurch Airport. All these big signs around the airport: don't bring any fruit, dairy products or meat into this country. If you do, we'll fine you $200, roughly £100. I'm checking with my family that none of us are carrying a dead sheep covered in yogurt with a melon in its mouth. And bizarrely, we weren't. We'd left it in Warrington. My luggage went through security fine. My sons went through security fine. My daughters went through security fine. My wife's went, This security guard goes, sir, if you can step aside, I need to open the case. And I'm like, yeah, be my guest. Fascinating. 3 red apples in my wife's case. Glad you found that funny. Do you know what? She'd not even hidden them in her underwear. He said, is it cash or credit card? I said, it's 3 red apples. He said, sir, there are signs all around the airport. We've even provided you with bins. Is it cash or credit card? I said, do you know what? Technically speaking, that isn't actually my case. Helen, darling, I think you're required. I'd been in New Zealand 10 minutes. I was tired. I was hungry. He puts the red apples into a bin. They're the most expensive apples my family has ever bought. They cost us over £33 each. I didn't get to bite into a single one of them. And then my wife is led away like a criminal, which, to be fair, serves her right. And then my son, who was 16 at the time, perhaps with a hint of sarcasm, suddenly just looks at me and goes, Dad, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10's death, where is it? You know what? It was almost like he was doing, Dad, do you want to put your blue hat on as well? Be kind to yourself, get perspective. Here's the third point. We talk about it with the young people, but adults need it as well. Hippo time is okay. What do hippos do in mud? They wallow. Do you know what I've realised? And people need to have permission for this. It's okay to not always feel okay. That being resilient and being mentally healthy and emotionally healthy doesn't mean I'm always feeling amazing. Because actually sometimes I'm not. And do you know what? Sometimes it's okay to not always feel okay. To sometimes feel mad, bad, or sad is okay. And I don't think we should even use I don't think we should decide to describe emotions as either positive or negative. They're just emotions. And they are valid for you at that time. And that is okay. You know, hippos don't just wallow in the mud. They also go there to get out the heat, to cool down, and to play. And I think what is crucial to hippo time is giving ourselves permission, yes, to wallow, yes, to acknowledge this is where I am at the moment. Process your sadness, sit with your sadness, recognize this is where I'm at the moment, and recognize actually sometimes maybe I'm not wallowing, I've had a really, really tough week or tough month or tough term, and I need to resign as general manager of the universe and stop putting on everyone else's oxygen masks and prioritize my own well-being, because self-care isn't selfish, and maybe I need some recovery time to breathe life into me. Point number one, hippo time is okay, but it is temporary. And I think the danger is people get stuck in the mud and they wallow for too long. I found it really helpful in my life, though, now, just to sometimes when people say, how you doing? And it's almost like, I'm in a bit of hippo time, actually. And that's actually okay. Just need to remind myself, though, that it is temporary. It's part of our journey. It's not meant to be our destination. And often the 7 questions, I only mentioned one of them, but often the questions can be a useful tool to help people move on. But let's just give ourselves and the young people permission to know that it's okay to not always feel okay. One of the infant schools that we work with and some of the primary schools, they have like a hippo time area now for the children to chill out. One infant school, actually, some of the parents got involved in sumo and knitted some little hippos. So the very young children who don't understand the concept of wallowing and recovery, but know that they understand they're sometimes feeling sad, and they hold on to their hippo. Be kind to yourself, get perspective. Hippo time's okay. Here's the final thing to be thankful for. This is just crucial, guys. The people you hang around with, who hopefully breathe life into you, who support you, who give you a good listening to. But you see, the material isn't here just to protect our well-being. It's also about fulfilling our potential. It's not just a prevention around mental health issues. It's actually that, but it's also how do we help each other and ourselves to thrive, to flourish, to make a difference, to reach our potential, not to feel we have to prove our self-worth, but realize as people on this planet we are flipping amazing, so let's fulfill some of that with a sense of purpose. 2004, spring of 2004, I felt pregnant and wanting to give birth to a book. I wanted to write a book called Sumo. I was put in touch with the largest publisher in the UK of that kind of book. Here's what they said. I have to say my reaction to your title isn't very positive. I'm not convinced that shut up, move on, seen on the front of a book in a bookstore is going to make the majority of people think I must have that. It wouldn't make me want to buy it, it's quite aggressive. And I don't particularly like being told to shut up. And I'm a northerner. I think more sensitive southerners might be turned off by this even more. I thought, come off the fence, tell me what you really think. I had some hippo time, but I also decided this, you can wallow for so long, maybe you then need to move on. I convinced this woman, this editor, that she should meet me. And having met her and given her an idea on how we could promote sumo as a book by having my little sumo logo, which is a sumo on a unicycle on the front cover. I said, how about that? Because if I saw that on the front cover, I think it's fun, quirky, different, memorable. Wouldn't see it as aggressive. And she said, you know what? You do argue a strong case. I still don't think it's going to work, but I'm going to take it back to my sales team. If they think they can sell it to the book trade, I'll give you a deal. And I'm like, yes. And a week later, she said, I've spoken to other colleagues, and their reaction was similar to mine. A book title has to work from the outset, and Paul, yours just doesn't. Life goes on, though, doesn't it? The next day, I was working in London. I got the train to London Euston. I got off the train. I went into W.H. Smith's. Why? Because I was looking for an oxygen mask, because what breathes life into me is I do like to read. Something that's going to inspire me, make me think, or make me laugh. Top shelf business section was this book, Who Moved My Cheese? Some of you ever come across it? If you haven't, it's a parable. It's about 4 mice and how they deal with change. I'm looking at it going, I'll flipping well move your cheese. Could have been Ruddy Sumo up there. And then whilst I'm studying W.H. Smith, I remember thinking to myself, you know what, Paul? You've had your Hippo time. Yeah, they are the largest publisher in the UK, but they're not the only one. You know what? I got out of W.H. Smith's and I took the escalator down to the London Underground. I remember thinking to myself, one of my sumo principles, which is learn Latin. And the Latin phrase is carpe diem, seize the day. And 24 hours later, I'm back in my office and I'm all fired up. And I got my book proposal out. And I sent it to loads more publishers, and here's what happened. No, 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 no. I got a further 12 no's. A woman actually came up to me recently. She said, you're not like a lot of other motivational speakers, are you? I said, in what respect? She said, well, some of them are being quite successful. I was about to give up. And metaphorically speaking, in life, we do sometimes fall. And one of the things I've learned in life is this: it's not whether you fall that's the issue, it's how long you stay down there for. And sometimes people will give you a hand up, or sometimes you have to be prepared to say, can you give me a hand up? Because that's when mates can really matter. And one of my lessons that I have learned is seeking support is never a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom. And my mate, the biggest mate on the planet who's influenced me a lot, is a guy called Paul Sandham. And I just said, Paul, I think the sumo dream is dying. He said, but Paul, your stuff could help a lot of people. So I think you just need to push a few more doors. I said, mate, I love you for all your encouragement, but I think I've pushed as many doors as I can. But mates matter, and sometimes mates don't give you the arm of approval. They kind of give you the push of encouragement and challenge you. Because he said this, Paul, just try pushing a few more doors. Because remember, you only need one to open. The book came out end of May 2005. A month beforehand, my publisher contacts me. They went, Paul, W.H. Smith's have been on. I'm like, oh, are they going to stock it? They're going to stock it. They went, Paul, stock it. They've chosen it to be their business book of the month when it comes out. I went, it's not really a business book, though. It's more like a personal development book. They went, Paul, if W.H. Smiths want to make it business book of the month, it's a flipping business book, okay? I said, what does that mean? He says, this is what it means, top shelf business section. Next month, you won't see Who Moved My Cheese. Neither will you see another book just come out by Alan Sugar called The Apprentice. What you will see is a funny-looking guy on a unicycle, London Victoria Railway Station, June 05. The Apprentice is just down there. You know what Paul said to me in 2014? Because mates matter, and this is not just about how to survive, it's about how to thrive. And Paul says to me, you know what? It's his 10th, sumo will have been 10 years old in 2015. Why don't you see if you can get a 10th anniversary edition? Because your material's developed. That's what we did. It got to #1 in non-fiction. It's not about a book, though. Today, and the messages you'll hear from all the other speakers in the workshops, it's about a message that is massively important. And my message to you is resilience in the classroom starts in the staff room. So it's really critical and crucial that you put your own oxygen mask on, because then you're in a better place to help other people. Let me leave you with Nikki. Nikki simply said this: Paul, I was made redundant on Friday. It was a dull, but it was a well-paid job. And I wallowed for half a day, then still feeling angry and let down on my way home. I bought your book in Heathrow Airport, read it from cover to cover whilst waiting for my flight. I've always been the type of person to see the opportunities when faced with adversity. But your book has given me the insight, the courage, and now the determination to pursue my dream career. Thank you. Guys, I'm not going to play humble and modest with you. I love that photo. We're selling it today. All the profits will go to Macmillan Cancer. The book's been translated into 11 languages now, including Australian. But that's all a bit of ego stuff. Why do I leave you with Nikki's email? I'll tell you why, because Nikki's never met me. And Nikki's never even heard me speak, but Suma made a bit of a difference to her. So as you move on throughout the day, and when you go back into your workplace tomorrow, or maybe with your families tonight, you're thankful for. Be kind to yourself and encourage other people to be kind to themselves. Put the blue hat on occasionally and make sure you get a bit of perspective. Recognize that Hippo time is okay, but it is temporary. And remember, mates matter. Your mates matter, but you could be a mate to someone and make a real difference to them and help them maybe pursue some of their dreams. Oh, and one last thought I'd like to share with you. Kevin, in his introduction, said, everyone thinks we're probably mad, but we like to think of it as making a difference. Guys, every single one of us in this room is mad. Let's make a difference. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together, please. Mr. Paul, the Summer Guy, McGee.
Thanks, guys.